had been persuaded by a friend to go on what she told me was a cultural tour of Tuscany. Now, I do like the Uffizi with the best of them, but I expect I'm made wrong. But I can only cope with a certain amount of beautiful marble statues and a certain amount of young ladies who don't have their eyes properly open and seem to have forgotten their clothes before I'm reaching for the vino. But I had promised to accompany my friend through all her travails. So chateau upon chateau we went to. She had contacts, she told me, in the British Council, which meant all kinds of places and wouldn't have normally have been opened, were opened to us, much to her delight. And that was where I first heard of Giuseppe and his unfortunate wife Sophia. It was one of those chateaux, I can't remember, Castillo, I can't even remember that, sorry. And I was looking around when suddenly a picture caught my eye. It was a little bit later, I think I was told it was 17th century, with the light and dark. Do you know that effect when the light catches the face? It was a man and a woman, both lit up by a white light that had flicks of purple and red in it. They weren't in the well-lit bit of the chapel, of the chateau. It was almost as if they were hidden away. And I pointed to my friend and she said, "Oh yes, those pictures are remarkable, well done for noticing them. That is Sophia, the unfortunate countess of the tower on the hill. And that is the Count himself, Giuseppe." "What about him?" I looked at his face. He had a remarkable pale languor, eyes that had seen too much. While his wife, I saw, was decked out as if she was Virgin Mary. "Nobody likes to say," said my friend. "They won't tell you if you ask. He was apparently a diabolist. When ruin came to his village and his tower was burnt, it was left on the hill, for none dare demolish it. And Sophia, she disappeared in the tower. Some said she was burnt with it, others that she had already gone. Some that she even flew from the roof as the flames mounted. No one knows. But they are remarkable paintings. You are right. So thank you for pointing them out to me. Now I shall just take their pictures." And so it went on. But that picture must have impressed itself upon my mind, for behind Sophia there was a tower. Now there are many towers in Tuscany, but this was on a hill, or craggy it looked, black, with curiously 7 battlements. And the tower was clearly in the design of an octagon. You could see that none of the angles were quite right, because it was on the side to us. The artist wanting to show their skill, no doubt. And the tower seemed to be impossibly tall, even given the perspective. It was remarkable, both real and surreal at once. It was the next week that it happened. I haven't even said what it was. I don't even know. Perhaps it was just in the end, just in me. But anyway, my friend, she had gone off to Pisa, where they were going to open for her a whole set of Renaissance treasures that she was delighted to see. But it was endless jewels and jewels and jewels, and I've seen one diamond, I've seen them all. So I said I would stay. I would stay in Firenze and look around myself. Well, she gave me the keys of the car. We had a hire car. She was going by train to Pisa. and told me not to get too confused, and just gave me some key words how to say please and thank you in Italian, because it is true, I speak not a word. And I drove around. I saw a wonderful cross that I'm sure I had never seen before, and some of my fine paintings. But as I said, in the end, my appetite always turns to the hills. And I looked up at them. It was October. There was a wind blowing. I suppose it must have been from the Adriatic, or maybe the Tyrian Sea, I am not quite sure, but it was cold with a tang of salt. And it made me look east, away from the wind. And I saw suddenly, for I hadn't noticed it before, there was an octagonal tower on the hill. And the road seemed to go towards it. And I drove instinctively. And I went some distance along little Italian roads until I came to what might have once been a crossroads. One road I knew went down into Faenza, and the other, good Pisa for all I knew. I was a minor road joining, you see. And there was a trackway going up towards the tower that looked no more than half a kilometre away. Now, I couldn't drive that in a hire car, so I parked the car. It was later than I thought it was. I hadn't realised how dark it would get in Italy in October. You never really do think about autumn in countries that you know were hot, only as hot, do you? And the wind was cold, so I took a jacket and I climbed up the hill. And I came up to the tower just as the light was beginning to seriously fade. I think sun must have set about 10 minutes before. And I thought to myself, well, now I'm here, I ought to just look inside. I saw that the gate was open and there wasn't a portcullis. So I stepped inside. And it was strangely disappointing. There wasn't an inside to the tower at all. It was just an outside wall. And nor could I see any evidence that there had ever been an inside. Barely. I looked around in the fading light. I lit a match. There was nothing downstairs, but looking up, I could see at a certain height there were building supports, as if they had roofed it and floored it, but above the ground level. And I came round to perhaps halfway round, maybe the fourth wall from the entrance, and I saw the beginning of a staircase jutting out from the wall, and it still had an iron banister that ran along its side, bolted onto the wall. I don't know how. And the staircase I saw went round and round and round the building. A crazy witch ride. But I thought, well, if I climb those, and there is a railing after all, I might just see high enough to see the dying sun. So carefully I started to climb, and I thought it wise to count the stairs. 1, 2, and up we went. Soon I got to 100, and I thought, wow, this is longer than I thought. And a voice in me, a voice of sense, said, it's time to go down. But just then, it was strange to say, the image of the dark Count Giuseppe came to my mind, and another voice whispered, no, go to the top, no, go to the top. And I carried on. 270, and my heart was pounding, and I reached out, and the banister seemed to be gone, and I sat on the stairs. And the voice of reason said, really, go back down. You're in a tower, nobody knows you're here. It's getting dark. But once again, the voice seemed to say, no, look, beyond the banister, look. and I saw that stairs were going up, and if I leant into the wall, I could climb up, for there was rough marks along the wall, as if others sometimes had used it as a handhold, as if the banister had never been there. So on I carried, and soon I picked up the banister again, and I came up and up and up, 470, and my heart was in my right mouth, beating, for it seemed a long, long way. I came at last up to, when I was on the 470th stair, to a great window that looked out over the land. Perhaps there had been a platform here once. The staircase went on. I couldn't see anything other than stars through the great window. And now I carried on. And often the banister would go on the inside, and sometimes windows would gape. And all the while the voice of reason told me, go back down. And some other voice said, no, no, no. Honour the adventure. Right to the top, to the top, to the top. And on I went. And then suddenly on the 503rd step, I stepped out, and there was nothing. Nothing. I almost slipped back. I wasn't quite at the top of the tower. I could see it about 2 meters above me, but there was a staircase missing, and no banister. I looked up using a match, and I saw there was only one staircase missing. If I was careful, I could get onto the next staircase. And I knew, no, go down, go down. You've come this far, you've come this far, go up, go up, go up. So very carefully, I picked my way up, and I went up the 5 more stairs, and then suddenly I stood triumphantly at the battlement. Now, I have never been scared of heights, never, and yet I swayed backwards and forwards, I've heard a voice, jump, 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 it's only the safe way, jump, 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 look, down in the garden, it is no height, come, jump, it will be beautiful down in the courtyard. And I looked down, and it seemed, I don't know by what optical illusion, that I could see the floor of the courtyard, although it was lost in the dark, and it seemed only 6 inches away. I stepped to go down it. Suddenly my voice of reason said, no, no, no. 503 steps it took you, and more. Go, I tell you, go. And once again the voice said, no, no, no. No, step off the tower, why not? Join the rest, step off my tower. And I put out my leg, meaning to step, but just at that moment, a bat flew up. I think it must have been a bat. Cold flesh on my forehead, and I jumped back onto the staircase into safety. My heart now was so loud, and with its beat came sense and life. I concentrated and I said, no, we will go down. But I couldn't walk it. I went down the steps, first 5 down to the gap on my bottom, and then carefully picked my way across the missing step. And as I did so, there was a blast of wind, hot wind, that almost blew me off my feet. That would have done. But somehow, some strange voice warned me that it would be there. So I made it, and down I went. 200 stairs down, 300 stairs down. Now the banister was always there, and I just about managed to get up and climb on it. 470, 471, 2, 490, and somewhere around 495, I passed out. My knees buckled underneath me. And the next thing I knew, it was morning, and I was lying in the ruins of a tower whose walls went up barely 3 meters, and there were no staircases there. Shivering, I went down to the car, drove back to the hotel and waited for my friend. I didn't like to tell her what had happened. I don't think I've told anyone. I still don't really know what happened. Whether it was some wild dream or some wild fate that led me to that tower in Tuscany in autumn.